so that if you wish to take notes, there are two options there where you can take private notes or you can take public notes that will be sent that everyone can see. And those are sent automatically to you as soon as the webinar is finished. So that's not a problem. Let me ask a question for a few things just before we start again. I got an email from you, Gordon, that shows me that you are online, yet I just got an email from you saying you can't get online. Would you type into the chat board if indeed you did get online? Because if not, I need to find out what's going on with that. Okay. So, and Ruben, you are online now, correctly? Correctly. Wait, my mother would be ashamed. Hold on just a moment. Okay. No video on DC. Ruben, turn off your cam so you get to see the background of everything. Okay. Oh, there he is. There we go. And as quickly as he came, he went away. Okay, so Gordon, you got on. So looky, let's start. What I think would be the best way, one, to just kind of get the ball rolling for the attendees as we start thinking about things you want to know and send a stream of questions, and we'll start to deal with them as soon as possible. Bill, what would be fascinating, I think, is a way to begin this. Hold on just a moment. I'm tech support here. So as a way to start this, what would be very interesting is, how long have you been an artist manager?
I've been at IMG Artists for 17 years now. When I started here, for the first 3 years or so, I was working in what we call booking, which is sales. What that means is that I would be working with opera companies and recital presenters and orchestras from around, in my case, from around North America, and selling the artists that are on our vocal division roster. Over the course of a couple of personnel shifts, I was able to be promoted, and so I've been doing artist management where I have my own roster of artists for about 14 years now.
So, but while you were doing booking, essentially the booking role doesn't have anything to do with developing artists. You're basically handed
I mean, ostensibly, basically, what it is in terms of booking is that the artist is a product, if you will, and I am entrusted with, by the artist, by the managers, the artists, and I would not necessarily be doing career development, but I would be just doing selling, and I would have to know what each of the artists does. I would need to know that just because she's a lyric soprano, does that mean that she can sing Messiah, or does that mean she can sing Beethoven 9? Does it mean that she has the voice to sing Carmina Burana or not? And so insofar as I would be working with the manager on learning about their artists so that I could be an effective salesperson. But in terms of the career development is actually more the responsibility of the manager than the booker for that. To answer your question about career development.
No, but it's interesting because I would say that most people, most artists, this may be a big assumption, but most artists don't know that there is that break sometimes in the industry, and not all management agencies do that. The difference between a booking agent and an artist manager, for lack of other words, um, where where you have people that sell and people that develop, because sometimes it's all together, sometimes it's separate. I think that in the Broadway industry and certainly in the movie industry, there is a difference between agent and manager in the sense that you usually have two. But so
Yeah,
one of the things that would be, excuse me.
no, I was just going to say that in Hollywood or in film or in theater, a talent will have both, a manager who is one person and an agent who is one person, and they do
Yeah.
separate things. The manager is involved in the overall global structure and career development, whereas the agent is finding specific projects. And in the classical music world, which is smaller than Hollywood, basically
A little bit.
the manager is the agent is the manager. And what we are responsible for doing and what we do is sort of an all-inclusive career development, strategizing, booking, sometimes PR, sometimes psychologist, and one-stop shopping. Each company is going to be different. I mean, in terms of IMG Artists, which is just one example. I mean, it's a big company, so we have lots of people that work here, lots of people doing different kinds of responsibilities. There's no right way and wrong way of this industry. It's more sort of a personal what works for the artist and what works for the career manager. There are some companies that are one person, and that person does everything, or just a very small management that has a couple of people. I mean, IMG, and I'm not selling IMG, I'm just stating that there are, I don't know, 150 people, 200 people that work here at the company, across all of the offices internationally. And each of the offices also has slightly different sizes, structures, all this kind of stuff. So there's no right way and wrong way. It's more about what works best for the individual artist.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now, how has hold on. How has the business changed? Like, for example, when you started 17 years ago, we all know because we hear it constantly that the business is changing, the business is changing, the business is changing. What would you say is the way it was when you began, and how has it changed, and what is the state of the business as far as management is concerned and building young artists internationally? How has it changed now? What is the state of it today, would you say?
I think it's been a big change from when I started. I think that there are two big changes, I think. One of them is media, and how media is now differently important. It's much more international, and it's much more about the visual than about the audio or the oral. And in the past, speaking from a North American perspective, we would have on the public television station 3 or 4 times a year a broadcast from the Met that was taped and edited and all. And it was the pictures, the views were a few cameras, and you would see big screen, big shots. Now, is very up close, high definition, directed within an inch of its life, both from a sound point and a visual point. So the audience viewer is told what he or she sees by a director or producer. So, and everything's available online. So from a media standpoint, it's much more, sadly, it's about what it looks like and not about what it sounds like, which ties into the second part of what I've noticed in terms of the big changes is exactly that it's about what it looks like much more now than it ever has been. And sadly, that there are very that an additional hardship for an opera singer who wants to make it on the international stage and have a significant career, if that's an aspiration, is that there is so much pressure on what you look like, and in addition to what you sound like. But I dare say that some of the people that came along in the past, the great singers who were not gifted with great looks or a great physique, but who had great voices in the past, could have great careers. It's harder now for that to be possible.
But would you say, let's be honest here, not to be nasty, but would you say that it's harder or it's impossible? Do you think that it is possible? Like, okay. And then,
but I think it's very challenging. And the flip side of that is that there are plenty of people, and I apologize for saying this, but there are plenty of people out there who are having major careers because of what they look like and not because of what they sound like.
Well, that's the truth. So then a question that just came up here, and then we'll get to some of the other ones that have been there, is it so looks are more important than sound, would you say?
No, I don't think that looks are more important than sound. I think that looks are more important than they used to be. And that a performer who is a total package has a greater possibility for success today than in the past. I think that someone who takes care of his or her body, someone who has good acting abilities, someone who could improvise, someone who maybe has a dance background. I mean, I think that when as a manager, when we're looking at CVs of young singers or even older singers, on the special interests, after they list the credits of education and performance and languages and all this kind of stuff, I think that having a special interest or special abilities credit is very important. It can't be overlooked because, whether you have a background in tap dance or fencing or flamenco dancing or, whatever it is, I think that it's important to add because it's something that creates a complete profile or a more complete profile than what I, as an auditioner, would see or hear in 10 or 15 minutes of auditioning. And certainly, if one is going out for an audition, and it's hours and hours of an audition that a casting director is hearing, and every soprano walks on stage and sings her thing, and every tenor and every mezzo, having something that sets you apart and triggering an association is a plus. Is a plus that you can't overlook.
Yeah, an association. You mean a personal association with something?
Well, a personal association, or it could be anything from when I see a resume, and if the person has some sort of interesting special interest, I'll circle it and I'll remember, hey, he runs marathons, or she was a ballroom dancer. And listen, I'm a purist, so for me it still is all about the singing. But there are plenty of people that do want to know something special about the person, beyond what they look like and beyond what they sound like. I mean, going back to what I'm just looking at the notes on the chat on the side, what Natasha said, so looks are more important than sound. No, going back, I just say that they're more important today than they were 15 years ago or 50 years ago.
So a couple things to follow up with that. One, with these special skills, to speak, that you're talking about, where is a good place to highlight those? Where is a good place to mention those?
Well, I think
Just
that,
on.
if you're talking about a resume or a CV, let's not use the resume, because a resume is in terms of a text-based document. That's more, Timmy Tenner was heard, is a graduate of the Juilliard School and studies with such and such teacher. He's
Mhm.
sung this and rolls under, study or that and all this kind of stuff. But in terms of a CV, an actual, I'll block out the person's name, but something that looks like, you know,
Yeah,
with
blocks of info.
that something like that at the bottom where awards, special interest, special mentions, something like that at the bottom. I mean, it's certainly not the most important thing to focus in on a CV, but it is something that completes a picture.
Hmm. Yeah, this makes sense. Now, another question that came up there that I don't want to miss out as we kind of get through the concept of how the business functions today. You made a very good point of the fact that you have to you have to also audition for the camera these days. That is the nature of our business, at every level, because I think even in the smaller theaters, they're YouTubing things, they're taking clips, they're putting stuff out there so that they constantly want that. Now, what is the difference between real age, meaning what says in your passport, and how you look? I mean, I have to say, I mean, on a personal note, you know my wife, who I know how old she is, and I know that she looks a good 15 years younger than she is, and probably always will. So our Hilda Harris is, to me, the perfect example of someone that a woman of a certain age who is absolutely timeless. So what effect do you think real age versus how you actually look is? And then also weigh in, nobody's asked this, but I'm fascinated. Weigh in on your concept of if it's beneficial for an aspiring singer to lie about their age and what the effect of that is, good or bad.
Good question. I don't think in today's world it's useful to lie about one's age. I think that it cuts both ways. I think that for a young singer, I'll give you an example. Last year I was at Curtis in Philadelphia, and I heard auditions of the young artists in their studio. And there was an artist that came in, a young baritone, who really impressed me greatly. Sang a terrific audition. We had a nice little conversation after he was done singing, and I couldn't tell his age. I knew that he was young, but I couldn't tell his age, so I asked him. And he told me his age, and I nearly fell off my seat because he was so gifted and so smart and intuitive musically that I would have thought that he was a good 5 years older than he actually is. And so I think that it's something that it depends on what the singer is auditioning for or where you are in your career. I think that someone who is straight out of a graduate school looking to start a professional career, don't lie about your age. I think that, quite honestly, I can't speak about other countries, Germany, England, France, whatever, but in America, you don't need to put your age and on a biography or on a CV. And in fact, it is illegal for a casting director and artistic administrator to ask your age. Illegal. So if anyone who's out there watching is either concerned about their age or feels that it is a gray zone about putting their age or revealing their age in an audition or in on a CV, you don't need to put it there. I mean, I honestly, it's when I'm hearing auditions, I'll either ask what a person's age is because it's not illegal for me to ask because I'm not casting anyone. So there's no job.
Yeah.
It's about job discrimination, and I'm not looking to cast them in a job, so I'm okay asking the question. But there have been a number of times where I've been on a panel with artistic administrators, and they'll slip me a note, or they'll whisper in my ear, "Would you please find out how old that person is?" And I ask them. Or if it's something that I feel is appropriate for a group to know, I'll ask without being told or asked to ask, so that everyone can know this person is younger than they look, older than they look, or get a sense for a target age.
Now, so what would be, because this is another thing that's interesting, what would be the definition of a young singer? Because in my experience, the definition between what is considered a young singer in the United States is very different than what's considered a young singer in Europe in general. So what would you consider young singer age, realistically?
In North America, I would say sort of the cutoff, I would say the cutoff, and there will be a caveat to this, is 30. If you're under 30, and you're a soprano, a mezzo, a tenor, a countertenor, or a baritone, you can still be a young singer.
Okay.
Basses or bass baritones have a little bit more wiggle room because their voices are not going to develop fully for possibly another 8 years or more. So I would say that, at least in my experience in North America, I mean, if you're 30 or you're 31 or you're 32, that doesn't mean that you're not a young singer. It just means that you can't really call yourself, "Oh, I'm a young aspiring singer" anymore, because you're not. You're not in the context of your ages. Now, and again, with bass baritones and basses, you can call yourself, "Oh, I'm a young bass," or whatever, but you'll get a little bit more leeway if you're a bass or bass baritone with age. Now, I imagine that with the system in Europe, it's a bit different because of the studio or the fest system that exists in Europe that is a bit more common than what we have here in North America. So fest singers often are made up of younger singers. So you know, in terms of being called something young, younger, whatever, it's a bit more fluid in terms of the definition in Europe.
Hold on, trying to do too many things. So then no, it's very good. I mean, I think that we're piquing interest here. So then the question is does this mean that as an artist manager, when let's get into kind of some meat of things here, when you're looking to find talent to work with, I happen to know, because I know you personally, I know that you are one of the managers that's very, very diligent, that you don't make quick jerk decisions as to who you take on your roster. You watch people develop, you get involved with them personally to help them over a period of time before you then take the step of saying, "I will take it upon myself to put your livelihood in my hands," which is something unbelievably commendable. But then what, is there a cutoff age of sorts? What, is there something that basically, if you say, look, if somebody's 35 years old and doesn't have anything going, unless they're Brunhilde, I simply can't take them on? Is it as easy as that, or is it more complicated than that? And how do you make those decisions?
Depends on the voice type, quite honestly. When I'm looking to take on a new singer, there's so many factors involved. It could be is the person a singer who's already having a career and they've come to me asking to be managed by me, or I see them in a performance and I know that they're unhappy with their manager and they want to make a switch if their career is already in motion. With young singers, it depends on who gets me excited. It depends on do I need a particular kind of singer on my roster. So, for example, do I have a soprano that sings Rosina or Carabino? And if I don't, if I see one that is exciting to me, I'll approach that person, and whether that person is 23 years old or 33 years old, depending on where their career is. I be seeking them out that way. So, in terms of and to your point about the next Brunhilde, if there's a soprano or high mezzo soprano that is demonstrating the potential for that kind of career growth, I might take a chance and invest in that person, knowing that it's going to be a long haul before they actually get to a Brunhilde or an Isolde or fill in the blank, whatever role it is. I mean, I am someone who is conservative in my career development workings with an artist, and I only want. There are times to take chances, and there are times to really take leaps of faith. But on the whole, I do believe in a long career arc, and one that is based on doing the right thing at the right time for the right reasons, and one that will, in as much as possible, ensure a healthy lifestyle, sanity, and success on the stage. Not only personal success, but also artistic success and success with your colleagues and stage directors and choreographers and conductors.
So then,
that in our society today, which is so based on me, now, that people are looking for the quick and looking for the brightest and the most sparkly, and as soon as it fizzles, you get the next thing. But
you mean people? When you say people, do you mean those that cast, or the presenters themselves looking for that? That's what you mean, or no?
I think it's both. I mean, I think that we live in a society where if you don't like what's on TV, you flick the button and you go on to the next channel. And it's the same exact thing in classical music. If you don't like the channel, you don't like the program, you don't like the soprano, you don't like the mezzo, you flick the switch and there's another channel waiting to be seen and waiting to be heard. And it's the same with opera. People are much more expendable than they used to be. I think that part of the reason is because conservatories are churning out huge numbers of singers who walk across the graduation platform, get this little piece of paper saying that I have a degree and voice from whatever university. Now what? And they don't know what to do. And so casting directors, artistic administrators, symphony orchestras, with the constricting market, there are fewer opportunities. I mean, it's interesting. There are fewer opportunities in the arts, yet there are many, many, many more singers out there who are, not to say flooding the market, but who just will never make it. And it's the honest truth. It's the hard truth. And whenever I go around talking to conservatories or music schools, the first thing out of my mouth, and sorry to be a downer on this, but the first thing out of my mouth is, if you can possibly do something else, do it, because this is such a hard industry. The competition is so keen. There are fewer and fewer job opportunities, and everyone dreams of singing at the Met or having a Deutsche Grammophon contract or whatever. And, the good thing is that there are lots of opportunities if you look, if you, you can be a very happy and productive musician and artist by doing many different things. Teaching, singing in a church or synagogue choir, being in the chorus of an opera company, whatever. There are many different ways to go about making a career, but it's a hard career, and the sacrifices that you have to make are just so many. Family, life, business, relationships, you name it.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that was asked here is you mentioned the constricting market, and then the question is to expand on the constricting market. I think that this a little bit goes back to our first question of how things have changed from when you began. But what would you say at the moment? This constricting market, which I completely agree. I think we both know very well how that's functioning. What would you say is the function of that? Is it going to continue to constrict? What are the effects that it's having, like real world effects, fees dropping, careers finding empty holes like established careers finding empty holes in the calendars? What's the effect of that constricting market, and where will it stop? And is it worldwide, or is it just in the U.S.?
I think it's different in North America than in Europe, because in Europe there are so many cities that, first of all, the tradition is different in Europe than it is in North America. Secondly, there are many cities that have rich, diverse arts markets. And so if you were to go to a second or third or fourth tier city in England or Belgium or Switzerland or Germany or Italy, each of those cities is going to have a symphony orchestra, one or two recital or concert series. And they're going to be thriving. They're going to be international. They're going to be built of a diverse audience. Whereas here in North America, yes, third, fourth tier cities do have recital series, maybe symphony orchestras, maybe, but the diet in those communities is less plentiful and less diverse than it is in Europe. And I think that in terms of the constricting market, what's happening, I'll break it up into the three Roman numeral pillars of the market, which is opera.
Recital work. Say again, you said recital, concert, and opera. Was that what you said? Okay.
So I would say that recital work in North America is in the most dire situation of the three. There are fewer and fewer recital opportunities in North America with every passing year. People, the presenters, the concert presenters are not presenting voice recitals as frequently anymore. This year, in the 2013-14 season, Lincoln Center in New York is not presenting a single vocal recital.
Wow.
Lincoln Center. Not the Metropolitan Opera or the New York Philharmonic, but the overall corporation, Lincoln Center. Not a single vocal recital. And I asked the programming director why, and the answer was because the market doesn't support one. So now in Europe, it's different because the culture is different and because it's in the European blood, in terms of this attention to culture. And also attention span. In America, again, I hate to use the remote control on the TV, but we have a 30-second attention span here in the United States. And if you don't like it, flick the switch. So symphony is a bit better. And opera, opera is growing, actually. I think that it still has its challenges, and certainly the impact, in terms of audience, that's being impacted. But, someone told me a statistic a couple of days ago that in New York City, there are something like, it's either 43 or 53 opera companies in New York City. And I didn't know that, but it's astonishing. And we in the major agencies may only think about the Met or Carnegie Hall or whatever as the major presenters, but there are lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of presenters and lots of opera performance opportunities.
But do you find that it's also constricting in the smaller theaters or just in the larger ones? If there's 43 opera companies in New York, all we hear about is that New York City Opera is shut down, but that means that there's 41 other ones, if you take the Met out of it, that might be hiring, albeit at a lower level. Do you find that that's also constricting, or perhaps the lower level's expanding?
I think the lower level may be expanding in terms of the number and in terms of not only the numbers of companies, but it's sort of grassroots operations. Now, I look at on the chat notes on the side, and Natasha's just asked, but the local companies are not paying. And the local companies are not paying too terribly well. But I think that if the artist is clever, that the artist can use that opportunity as an investment to, they may not be paid by the company well, but they invite people to come see them and use it as a catalyst, as a springboard to having re-invitations not only from that company, but engagements and introductions to other members of the artistic community of the area, so that you may not end up today with a big paycheck or even a medium-sized paycheck, but it's an investment in your own career to be able to appear with a small or regional company. So the payoff isn't that you're going to walk away with a huge wad of bills in your wallet, but you might be able to get something for the future in terms of then you get more of a financial payoff.
So then the question would be, from that, and then I want to move to another couple questions that we don't want to lose. But so if an artist comes to you and is primarily showing you that they have this regional lower level experience only, does this affect your ability to be involved or to envision taking this artist on? There are regional companies like Gotham Opera, and then there are regional companies that are different than that are at a decidedly more entry level. How do you approach those? Does it sometimes hurt if you see that somebody's doing things at a company that you don't particularly like, or are you open to anything as long as you like the artist?
Well, I think that it's on a case-by-case basis, because it's the job, or if a young artist, or not a young artist, whatever, were to approach me and I were to see lots of regional work, I would be able to tell after hearing them and speaking with them, or speaking to people that I know who have worked with them or teach them, whether or not that person has the potential to be grown. And whether or not I am the right person for that artist in terms of cultivation of their career. There are all different levels of management. Levels is a wrong, because I don't want to imply that there's a stratus, there's tiers of management. There are big companies, there are small companies. And there are plenty of small companies that are very, very powerful artist management companies, and there are plenty of big companies that are less strong, less influential. And I think that it's not always about the size of the management company or the prominence of the management company that gets the artist the gig or has the power to get a phone call returned. I do think that if an artist comes to me and I see just lots of regional work, yeah, I may not be initially as excited about that person's resume, but if I get a call from someone whose opinion I respect and they say, listen, Susie Soprano is sending you her resume, I really believe in her, and I look at the resume and it's all regional stuff or small companies, I'll still give that person the time of day because I got a phone call from someone whose opinion I trust. Or, it may just be for whatever reason that they haven't yet had their break. And if I can invest in them, if I have the time, if I have the interest, if I see potential in them, maybe I will get behind them and help them to open some doors.
So then, a quick question, to just a quick answering question there, because it's a fairly easy one that somebody asked, and then I want to follow up with this again of specifically how it is that someone gets heard by not just you, but by management. That's what I want to follow up on. But quickly, do you manage any people that sing only oratorio or primarily concert work? And what is the criteria that you would choose were you going to take someone on that basically doesn't do opera most of the time?
Yeah, I actually, it's a very interesting question. Now, cause I've actually never thought of it this way in this context, so thank you for posing it this way, David. I would say from a financial standpoint, my most quote-unquote successful artists are the ones with smaller operatic careers. From a financial standpoint, and from I'm lucky enough to represent a really great bunch of artists, and the ones, some are having major international careers on opera stages, some are having major international careers on concert stages. The ones that are bringing in the most money are the concert singers, which is ironic given everything that I've just said about the concert industry in this climate shrinking. But I mean, I really love art song and I really love concert repertoire. I'm really excited by it. I also love opera, but it I would say that my particular interests or maybe my strengths, I don't know, are in the concert world. And so I think that if someone is talented, you can have a very productive, profitable, satisfying, rewarding, challenging career as a concert singer and only do opera, not on the side, but sort of more in a limited capacity. And you look through history, there have been many singers that have been like that. I mean, people who are some of the finest and most famous artists in the world, who have made their success not on the opera stage but on the concert stage. Arlene Auger, Benita Valente, to name two that just come to mind that way. Paul Sperry.
Yeah. So before we get into how does one get to management and how does one get onto the radar of that, the last question would be that Cynthia wrote here, that would you say that a paradox exists that you're a not so young artist who is singing Brunhilde, but you are placed professionally to where you would be the regional companies or what is available to you at this stage in your career, yet they're not going to be doing something that's in the repertoire that you would be singing in Brunhilde? How do you get around that paradox? What would you say?
Well, I think that there are a couple of ways to look at it. I think that if your voice is that size and built for that kind of repertoire, and you're not being engaged at the Deutsche Oper Berlin or at Netherlands Opera, you know, Cynthia in Germany is lucky because there are many companies in Germany who do program Strauss, Wagner, Janacek, Dvorak, big stuff, and certainly much more than in the United States or in Canada. And so that, you know, if your situation can't get you to Berlin or to Hamburg, it might be able to get you to Aachen or Kiel or something like that, where, you know, those are important theaters, even though they are quote unquote regional companies, in comparison with the major companies. And, you know, Cynthia is much luckier living in Germany than if there were a Cynthia who was here, you know, from the United States or from Canada or Mexico or whatever, because there's a lot more possibility for you, Cynthia, to sing Wagner, Strauss, the big girls. Hey, I just came over here. Okay.
Yeah.
So good for you for going over there, because, you know, you're going to you're going to the land of milk and honey, as it were, and that you'll have more opportunities. Sure.
Yeah. So look, I want to kind of take a turn and get into some things that I know that there have been many questions about, and we'll start kind of catching them along the way here, which is for an unmanaged singer. There seems to be this, I don't know, a little bit like people searching for El Dorado or the Fountain of Youth somewhere, that this sense of how do you get a manager? Because it's all well and good to say this is how it functions once you have a manager, which is another topic that if we have time we should get into, because I think that there's a lot of misconceptions as to what a manager can actually do for an artist at any level. But for someone that's trying to get a manager, how do you do that? Is it these days? Is it website? Is it media? I assume that you, like many managers, get enormous amounts of submissions on a regular basis. It's simply impossible to go through all of them and devote time or time to hear all of those submissions. You have said earlier that sometimes when someone you know and trust specifically calls and recommends someone to you, you are more likely to try to find the time to hear them. I think that one of the earlier questions, I'm getting to a point here, but one of the earlier questions said that in discussing the convincing of the market, the constricting of the market, it used to be that when you would go to see Barbara of Seville, the smaller roles were filled with developing artists. Now, almost without exception, they are filled with whatever young artists are in that theater's young artist program. And most times we're already quite familiar with those artists, sometimes, you know, in the major programs before they've come, so that's a lost opportunity for a developing singer. How does young, old, anyone, how does a developing, unmanaged singer start the process realistically of trying to find management, and when does management need to come to a singer at that point? Go.
The second question is probably the most asked question when talking unmanaged singers. When is the time to get a manager? And the answer is when you have something to manage. That's simple.
What is the definition of that, though? What does that mean when you have something to manage? Does that mean if an artist, for example, comes to you with a year of gigs that they've gotten themselves, which is a different question of how to do that, there seems to me, I've heard many times artists say, well, you know, I'm handing you commissions. I'll pay you commissions on work that you didn't have to do, Therefore, to an extent, I'm buying my way in with a year of contract. But what does it mean when you have something to manage? What does that mean?
I think that it means that there's you've got a talent that can be presented to a community, whether that's a domestic community, an international community, or both. I think that it means that you've got potential for more, for growth. I think that it could mean something that, something that I alluded to earlier, that I might have a need on my roster for a particular voice type, and that that if you're in the right place at the right time and you come with the right credits or the right references, that you might be able to be, snatched up by a management that way. I think that, going back, you're right. I do get lots and lots and lots of emails or submissions, mail, via regular mail, asking to be heard, or asking, how do I get management, or I want to sing to you, or whatever. Now, two things to that. One is that in my own experience, as I said earlier, if someone whose opinion I respect calls me or writes to me and says, dear Bill, I hope you don't mind, but I've given your name to a young mezzo who I really, I worked with, and she's really smart, and if you're going to hear from her, and it'd be great if you could make the time to hear, because I believe in her. Thank you. As a favor to that person, 9 times out of 10, I'll make the time to hear that artist. That's just me. I mean, there are plenty of managers that won't. There are plenty of managers that will.
Do you hold regular auditions simply yourself?
I don't auditions. It's not like, once every 3 months I'll rent a room and, bring people in to sing to me. I don't do it that way. I do it more as just like a one-off, person by person. But you can't know. Well, you would know. But the numbers of times where I get, to whom it may concern, my name is, Sally Soprano, and I would like to sing to you, or I'm going to be in New York from this date to this date, and whatever. The point is that, to whom it may concern, or dear sir, in an approach to a manager, is an automatic delete. Like if I get an email, to whom it may concern, my name is Sally Soprano, and I'm a delete, because that person hasn't taken the time to, it takes the same amount of time to write Dear Mr. Palant that it does To Whom It May Concern. And I am not a To Whom It May Concern kind of person, and none of my colleagues, I'm not concerned. And so I think that, and this is something that young singers, the same way that, you have to know what roles you're auditioning for, or knowing who you are as a person, as a performer, you also have to know who your audience is. And I am your audience. Caroline Woodfield at Opus 3 is your audience. Robert Rattray at Askenis Holt is your audience. And you have to know your audience. And if you're calling or writing to one of us to ask for an appointment to sing to us, to meet us, to talk about management,
or to invite you to a concert,
invite us to a concert, know who we are, know who our styles are, what our styles are. Look at who we represent. Are we, there are lots of managers out there who represent quote unquote opera singers, and that they, in the business, and I won't name any names, but if you're the Metropolitan Opera and you're casting Il Trovatore or Gioconda, you call this particular agency because they will have all the singers to cast your big opera. If you were doing, St. Matthew Passion, they would be the last people that you would call because they don't have anyone. Whereas IMG or another company, I mean, okay, our roster has a pretty good balance of, we have so many artists on our roster, but we also have a good balance. But know who your audience is. I used to work with Barbara Bonney, and she still does a lot of master classes. She lives in Austria now. And she once told the story about, she was working with a soprano who came to her to coach Susanna from The Marriage of Figaro. And so she sang De Vieni, and Barbara's, okay, fine. And so Barbara said, okay, now I want you to sing it to me as if you were doing an audition for John Eliot Gardner. And the artist sort of went, huh? What? Huh? Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, sing it like you're going to do an audition to John Eliot Gardner. What do you mean? Well, if you're Susanna and you're auditioning to John Eliot Gardner, you're going to present yourself differently for him than you would, let's say, if you were auditioning to James Levine for the same role. Know your audience. And it's the same thing when talking to artist managers. I'm very different than Robert Rattray at Askenis Holt. Caroline Woodfield at Opus 3 is very different than John Anderson at Barrett Vantage. Michael Levine in Austria is different from Verena Witter in Munich. So, I mean, everyone is different. Know your audience. Know who you're speaking to. Look at who they represent. Are they is my artist roster the kind of roster that you want to be on? Do I have artists that you admire or whose careers you respect? Maybe yes, maybe no. If no, look at Musical America and find, for those of you that get a Musical America, go to the library, and there are thousands of artist management credits here and rosters. Go online, and if you're in Europe, there are the Pay Guide, PAYE guide, that has the same thing for the European market.
Now, this one of the things, it actually brings me to one of the things that I encounter a lot through NYIOP over the years, is the fact that many artists, you touched on something that I think is good to expand upon just to put the seed into people's minds, is that many artists will walk in and say, I want to be with a powerful agent. I want to be with IMG. I want to be with the top. Yet, the real truth in life is not everybody is meant to sing at La Scala and Covent Garden. Toledo also does opera. So does Shreveport. So does Hildesheim. So did Frankfurt Oder for a while. And not every, you alluded to this a couple of times as well, is not every manager deals with every company. It's not a snob thing. It's not that you would never dream of going to Toledo Opera. It's not that, but there's just a limited number of hours in the day, and one must focus on one's strengths. And so one thing that I would just like to put out there in my own editorial here is the fact that there are a lot of different managements out there, and that you have to look for what is appropriate for what you are selling at the moment. In the sense that, to an extent, if you want to buy a scarf, it is different. Some people go to Hermes to buy a scarf. Some people go to Walmart. And it doesn't mean that you are not getting a good quality scarf, that you simply have to be realistic as to the level that you approach. I want to know, because some people, if they're with a big management, will simply never get work. We hear those stories all the time. People that sit on a big management roster not working, as opposed to those that go to one that's at a little bit different level and deals with different level houses and find themselves full all of the time. For example, these days, mentioning what you said, I might need this singer on my roster. Does that mean that, for example, you have 3 Carabinos? Does that mean that you're absolutely not in the market for a Carabino? Or you might be at some point. What does that mean, having too many people in that voice type, specific voice type on one roster? How do you determine that?
Good question. I mean, I think that one of the if you're talking about an agency like IMG, where in our New York office, I'm one of 5 managers that deals with singers, and so I have my own roster, and each of us has his or her own roster. So we also look at the acquisition or the search for another artist as do we as a roster, not do I, Bill Palant, need a Carabino, but how many Carabinos do we have already? If a management roster can have too many Carabinos. A management roster can never have too many good Radamai, or DeLunas, or Votans, or basses. So if it depends on your voice type, and it depends on how big the roster is, not only of the person, but the company that person works for or with. So I think that, and again, it sort of ties in. I don't mean to be beating a dead horse, but it sort of ties into the know your audience, because if you look at the IMG Artists website, or if you look at Askenis Holt website, or if you look at Barrett Vantage website, or whatever, you'll see what not only your competition from the outside world, but you'll be seeing what your competition is from your own management's roster, and knowing if when your manager is talking to, whether it's Toledo Opera or to Covent Garden, are you likely to be someone that I'm going to be able to talk to the presenter about you? If you're if most of the business that I do is with the Met or LA Opera or Covent Garden or whatever, and you're an emerging Carabino, I'm not going to talk to you about it. It's a waste of the presenter's time for me to talk with them about you. If you are an emerging artist and you have and you're still at the level of Toledo or Shreveport or Gelsenkirchen or whatever it is, I'm not going to bring your name up when I speak to Covent Garden or Vienna.
Limited time that you have.
Limited time. It's a waste of my time, and it's a waste of. I only have so many chits, so many moments of time with that person, and I want to use the right ammunition at the right time at the right place. So if you are an emerging Carabino, and I'm having a meeting with Gotham Opera here in New York City, or some other regional company, I won't go in and I won't waste their time talking about any of my star artists, because that's inappropriate as well.
Sure. But is there some sort of rule? I'd be surprised about this, but do you have some sort of a rule of certain companies that you just don't deal with a certain company under a level? Or is this just determined by the number of hours in a day?
It's by the number of hours in a day. It's by the possibility of productivity financially. And it's also about the roster and what we can offer. So I see, do you deal with operas like Shreveport and like? No, is the answer. If I get a call, I mean, you referenced Toledo earlier in our little conversation. I just did a booking at Toledo Opera because I got an email from their general director asking if one of my artists was available. It turns out that he was. It turns out that they were able to pay a somewhat decent fee, and I made a contract. But that's the first time in many, many, many years that I've done a contract at Toledo Opera. I don't have the time to talk to Toledo when I'm talking with Carnegie Hall and the Cleveland Orchestra and Covent Garden and Netherlands Opera and all those kinds. High Symphony
I
and
understand.
stuff. It's about
So
time.
what would you?
Sorry, go ahead.
Excuse me. No. So then the question would be, if an artist is operating at one level, and what you're essentially saying is that to climb from that to another level, how does one do that if essentially time restricts access to seeing those artists and all of that? Is it just persistence? Just keep pushing?
It's a number of things. I mean, it's persistence, it's pushing, there's a lot of burden on the singer to always grow, always be better than your last performance, and be dynamic, and in terms of making dynamic performances, impressing the people that need to be impressed. I mean, I saw something you had mentioned about social media and YouTube and stuff like that. Having a media presence, a social media presence, I mean, that's all part of the responsibility, much more so now than it's been in years. And a manager at a big company isn't going to have the time to invest and be completely active in your social media campaign. So that's something that, quite honestly, if I can encourage anyone that's here and young singers, is to really take a class or spend some time online looking at YouTube videos. How do I create a website? How do I do Twitter? How do I upload my videos to YouTube? Do I have the rights to upload my videos to YouTube? All this kind of stuff. You need to be the president of your own PR company, and this is something that needs to go. It's almost as important as whether or not you can sing very well. And
so a quick question then. Let's follow that in the little bit of time that we have left. Let's follow the social media question, because these days, I would say, you don't necessarily, as an artist, what do you need to have online? How does it help you? How does it hurt you? What is the usefulness of it, and how much, for example, in your job, does it help you notice people? Somebody asked earlier, is it a must for an artist to have a website these days? And does that help get you a manager, or does it not necessarily? What is the role of social media, and how an artist manager uses it, and how you have experienced that casting directors are using YouTube and the like these days?
I use it all the time. And
in what sense?
I think, in terms of promotion, in terms of directing potential employers to an artist, there are plenty of administrators, more sort of a certain generation, who do not prefer YouTube videos. Still, they would much rather have the in-person live experience. But in terms
sorry to interrupt, but have you ever experienced an artist being cast from YouTube without the live experience these days?
All the time. Absolutely. So I think that, and it's a tool that I use. I mean, if I search the internet for clips of my artists, reviews, sound bites, SoundCloud, we live in such a international world where you learn to know who are the people that can cast by computer, if you will, for those with the live experience, and who are the ones that just won't give it the time of day. And you customize your pitch according to, again, I have to know my audience, and I know who the people are that will spend the time looking at YouTube, and I know those that won't. So I think, I still have a few artists that don't have websites, but on the whole, many of them do. And those that don't, I am encouraging them to invest in it, because it's, everyone seems to have a website these days. And I think that one of the things that there are all different kinds of websites. But with YouTube, what I would encourage everyone to think about is, do these clips represent me well? Can I live with this clip? Because, you know, you do have the power to take down things that are on the internet that you don't like. And if there's a clip of you somewhere that you're not entirely thrilled with, get it off the web. Because if you cracked a note, if your pianist flubs something, if you've recently lost 100 pounds and that clip of you is when you were your fattest, get it off the internet. And, you know, really be sure, it's like making a demo CD. You want to make sure that the first thing that the person hears is captivating, is really strong. It's like reading a book. Novelists always try to make a very strong introduction in the first few lines, the first paragraph of their novel, because that's the hook. That's what gets the reader to turn the page, and you want to make the viewer or make the listener want to turn the page. If I get a demo CD and there's a long introduction, if the first thing is Lucia, let's say, where it has a long introduction, and I'm sitting there going, okay, I've got 2 minutes, and a minute and a half of the introduction is all the piano playing tinkly music or whatever, I get bored. If the first thing out isn't the best, your best number, switch around the CD, send it to people, give it to your teacher, give it to your parents, give it to your boyfriend or girlfriend, give it to your child, whatever it is. Get your team, whatever your team is, your small team, to give you honest feedback, and make sure that first clip on YouTube, make sure that the first clip on your demo CD is the strongest. You know, spend the time, if you have a YouTube clip, just hit, you know, I don't know how you do it, I'm not such a technological person, but like, you know, watch the clip yourself many, many times to get the viewership up. So that's the first thing that comes up when you put in Susie Soprano. I'll find that strong thing first.
Yeah. So then, simple questions here that popped up with a couple things is, if you have a clip of a dress or orchestra rehearsal and the trumpet's screwed up, do you take it down? What's your feeling?
No. I mean, I think that it's if you did a great job in the performance, and that clip of your work represents you well, I'll know that it's not your fault that the trumpet player flubbed a note. If the orchestra completely falls apart, or if you're, you know, in a recital and the pianist's music falls on the floor and he or she has to stop and pick it up and you end up stopping, maybe that's not the clip to use. But if it's a trumpet plug or whatever, don't worry about it.
We'll know the difference. Okay, so look, we're going to have to kind of wind down here. I have to say, Bill, this was wonderful, and I thank you. I mean, so many very interesting things. I think that probably the biggest thing that I take out of this for me, and I think that many should, is this wonderful know your audience in every way. The same way that you wouldn't go to an old folks' home and sing stuff that they don't care about. Why would you not know the managers you send things to? I think that it's a very good thing. You said, look at the roster. I think one thing I would add to that also is start looking at the bios of the people on the roster and see which level of theaters they sing in, and you'll get a more appropriate idea of the level of theaters this particular management works with. And that's a good way to know. I think somebody had asked earlier, just to put it out there in case you do, are you available for private consultations when people want to contact you?
Listen, I am, I think it would be sort of on a case-by-case basis. I do it quite regularly. And because the world is so big out there, and I don't expect. I mean, I'm not God's gift to artist management, but I know a lot more than a lot of other people, and I'm happy to share my perspective, my advice with whomever. So if people want to contact me, and I'm happy to set aside 30 minutes and talk, or if you want to send me a CD or a link to a website and just say, hey, I was part of the NYIOP webinar on October 12th, and could you look at my materials? Does this look clear? Or can you give my CD a listen? Do you like the order that I've put in, or is the quality good, or whatever? Feel free to write to me or to call, and I'll be happy to set aside some time. We all are part of this.
This is amazing.
This
is for all of you listening, this is an amazing offer because of the fact that everybody knows that nobody has extra time in this, and thank you for that offer. And I think that it's very, very kind and generous of you. Before we wrap up, I would like to say that once we end the meeting, just some nuts and bolts here. When we end the meeting, each of you will be taken to just a short survey to help us at NYIOP figure out what we can do like this to help more. I have to say, I think that this was, Bill, you were brilliant, and I really thank you from the depths of my heart for this. And I think that our industry is made much better by people like you that are very informed and are willing to share it. This is very, very helpful for us, and the fact that it's information that those of us that work kind of in the nuts and bolts of the business know a lot of this stuff because we deal with it every day, but somehow it seems to not really get out to the artists so much. And so I'm glad that this is good. If everyone, when we end the webinar, if you just take a minute to fill out the survey and give us some ideas, your thoughts, there's a comment section. Tell us what you liked, what you didn't, what worked, what didn't. If you have ideas of things that we should do in the future, please let us know, because we can do this.
I think it's really important. This is a perfect format, an informal opportunity to get a lot of information, because I can only echo what you're saying, David, is that this kind of information is not being taught in schools. And it's hard, it's not going to be spoon-fed. And so the fact that David and Ruben are making these informal conversations available to the international audience, and that all of the participants are taking the time to join in the conversation, to learn, to ask these great questions, is it shows that you all are active in the creation of your own careers and the maintenance and the growth of your own careers. And that's really important, because it's not going to happen unless you participate. It's you're not going to become a world-class singer if you don't practice, and if you don't learn new music, and if you don't learn languages. And this is the same thing. You're not gonna grow your career if you sit home and do something else, go for a walk, watch a baseball game. It's not going to happen. So I think that the fact that NYIOPs are making this platform available to an international audience is terrific. And I certainly would be happy to do more of these, and would encourage all of the participants to tell their friends, tell their teachers, post it on Facebook. I posted it on my Facebook page.
And he tweeted it. You tweeted it.
And I tweeted it. And I wrote to various conservatories around the country, asking them to share it with their faculty members and their artist diplomas. you know, if you like what you experience and you think that it's valuable and if you think that people need to get access to this information, tell them about it.
Thank you. I thank you. Just for the information for everyone here, next week, same time, same NYIOP time, same NYIOP channel, we're going to be joined by Daniel Biaggi, who's the General Director of the Palm Beach Opera, who is another gentleman in this business, like Bill. Daniel was a singer by training. Then he was an artist manager for a number of years with Guy Barzilay. Then he was the artistic administrator, casting director in Palm Beach, and rose to be the general director. And so he's another person that has a very good, deep perspective on the business. And anyone that knows him, just like Bill is nodding, knows that he's one of the good guys in the business. So we will sign off. I have to say, hold on a second. Do you want Bill's Twitter handle or ours? What is what are you, Bill? What is your Twitter handle? And before we sign off, thank you, Bill, again, genuinely, and we will look forward to another time when you can come back and do this. And thank you all for taking part, and I hope that it was very useful. I think this was a wonderful hour and a half. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, David. Thanks, Ruben.
Bye-bye to everyone.
See you next time.
Bye. Bye. Bye, all.